Masked Man Show.
Masked Man Show. Masked Man Show. Masked Man Show.
What's up, everybody? Ben Cruz here from the Ringer Wrestling Show, hopping on here with my guy, Brian H. Waters. Hollywood, how you doing?
I'm okay, I guess. So it's to be honest, we hate these circumstances just as wrestling fans.
Yeah.
But we gotta talk about it.
We do. And as you alluded to, a bit of a cloud hovering over the wrestling world today, specifically in WWE, after WWE announced over 20 wrestlers being released on this Friday afternoon / evening. These usually come in this big wave right after WrestleMania, but it's never fun to hear about. But let's just get into it. For those of you playing catch up, here is who was let go from their WWE contract today. Kairi Sane, Aleister Black, Zelina, Uncle Howdy / Bo Dallas, Nikki Cross, Santos Escobar, the Motor City Machine Guns, Dexter Lumis, Apollo Cruz, Rowan, Joe Gacy, Andre Chase, Zoe Stark, Alba Fire, Tyra May Steele, Serena Linton, Tyson, Tyreek, Chris Island, Malik Blade, Trill London, and Luca Crucifino. Hollywood, I'm going to throw it back to you after reading that list. Who is the most surprising name that you read today?
When I heard the names, I have to say Kairi Sane. I thought everything that the Kabuki Warriors were doing, I felt like we were headed for that post-WrestleMania story with the tag division. We was just having a conversation, 2 weeks ago about Kairi Sane possibly wrestling at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
So to go from there to hearing that she's released, I'm wondering if maybe she's making more money than what, I guess what, her current story dictates. So I'm not sure, but she was definitely my number one.
She's definitely up there for me. And I mean, even, the WrestleMania stuff aside that you alluded to, she's just one of the best wrestlers on this list.
Yes.
Right. Period. End of sentence. We were just talking to Kit Wilson last week in Las Vegas for Mania. And he was talking, we were talking about his elbow drop and how he was comparing his to Kairi Sane's, who has probably the best one in the game right now. So I obviously, the elbow drop aside, just an incredible professional wrestler. And she's also just a good WWE wrestler. Like, she figured out how to be an entertainer as well, right? So it's just that one was definitely shocking. For me, I guess it has to be the entirety of the Wyatt Six, right?
Okay.
And it's hard not to loop them in as one unit. Obviously, it's 5-6 individuals, individuals, but man, the way that they just came onto the scene, and I'll never forget the show that you and I did right after they debuted, right? And it was one of those things where we knew it was coming. We knew something along those lines were coming. And you just figured they were set to be something big, right? And obviously it was in memory of Bray Wyatt and everything else, but the fact that they're just kind of punting on them entirely after, they've kind of dragged out their storyline with the MFTs and the Lantern for a long time, that I just figured that they were going to carry this thing through beyond, WrestleMania. So I think that one was the one that was the most shocking. And since we're on the Wyatt Six, obviously what they were doing wasn't as big as what we thought it was going to be when they debuted. In your mind, what went wrong? And how did we end up here with the Wyatt Six?
I believe crowd connection. I feel that when you look at, you mentioned their program with MFT. Well, we just got finished watching SmackDown where Solo is back and forth with Jacob. Granted, that's his family, but the thing about Solo Sikoa is he's always had a crowd connection. And I never saw an equal on the Wyatt Six. Even with Tama Tonga, who I would say out of MFTs, probably the second one with the most charisma. I don't see that with anybody in the Wyatt Six outside of Nikki Cross. But this version of Nikki Cross isn't the world champion that Nikki Ash was. So we can't, and I don't think we was able to see that part. Now, as somebody who watched a Joe Gacy a lot on the independents, it's like, I know it's there, but we didn't get a chance to see that. So I'm not going to say, I will still say their release surprised me, but I guess I could kind of understand it,
Yeah, and the amount that they invested in them, it was just one of those investments that didn't fully pay off, unfortunately, right? And it's a bummer because from a WWE standpoint and from an entertainment standpoint, they should have worked. The production value that they've invested in terms of, the video packages and everything else, it was, and I guess it wore out its welcome over time, right? It just got kind of repetitive, and it kind of just never went anywhere. Like they kind of maxed out at the tag team titles. Uncle Howdy never really was a serious threat for any singles title. So it was, I guess the writing was on the wall, but it was just still one of those acts where you just figured Triple H is going to figure this one out, and especially with Rowan in the mix there too. So it, like even going as far as they had a Universal Studios haunted house, right? Like it's mainstream shit. So it's in that light, it's just kind of a bummer that it didn't really work out. Well, one other one that I wanted to touch on, or I guess two technically, is Aleister Black and Zelina, because we just talked to them at WrestleMania last week. Both of them sat in with David and Kaz, and I'll tell you this, man. Like I remember saying this to you, and I think the guys. Aleister's body language specifically was just a little bit different. The way that he was moving and shaking, because we talked to him at SummerSlam last summer, and obviously he had just come back, so maybe there was this newness about him and a little pep in his step. But this time around, he just seemed a little bit more somber. And I'm not saying that he knew that this was coming specifically, but I think that there was just something on the WrestleMania card that him and Zelina was probably supposed to do that he got pulled from. And I think we've, maybe floated out that he was supposed to be part of the Randy Orton thing and Cody thing a little bit more. What was your read on the Aleister and Zelina piece of this?
Man, that was a shock. Big shock to me. Especially Zelina and Aleister Black finally getting to work together. I thought we was going to go into the spring, summer. And this is obviously I love wrestling all year round. And obviously I do love the WrestleMania lead ups. But I think I have a special spot for that in between WrestleMania, SummerSlam time, because it takes me back as a child of watching wrestling, coming in the house to watch wrestling, because it was most of the time the follow up from what happened to WrestleMania and seeing those stories go in a new direction, but also seeing the new stars, right? Yeah. So you think back to when Triple H's reign started. He turned heel at WrestleMania 15. All throughout the summer of 99, he's building SummerSlam. The day after SummerSlam 99, he wins the title. So I'm looking at that and I said, okay, maybe. And I looked at them too and I was like, oh, they look like such a good package deal together. Yep. Maybe, just maybe after WrestleMania, we're going to finally see something with them. But, Ben, I would not be surprised if they were TNA people. And what I mean by that,
interesting. Okay.
I looked at this list and I believe a lot of the people on there will fall under the TNA umbrella. Whether that means they'll come back to WWE or do sort of the partnership thing, or they'll help elevate their brand. You know, and the reason why I say that, for people who may not know, Zelina was a big part of TNA as Rosita.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I can see her going back. That's, you know, home. I just don't see, you know, everything that kind of happened with Aleister Black and AEW, which, you know, we talked about during the SummerSlam media press. I just don't see him going back there. I don't see her going over there. So I could really see them in TNA, and maybe because of the network, it's always kind of getting them in some Hollywood roles.
Interesting. My takeaway from their release, honestly, was, you know, they were basically slotted into that Karrion Kross Scarlett role that was vacated around this time last year. Oh no, sorry. I guess it was more during the summer after we talked to Karrion Kross after SummerSlam, and they left. And it just doesn't. I feel like Triple H wants this manipulative character on screen to work, and it just hasn't for whatever reason, right? And he's just kind of pulling the plug, or creative in general is just pulling the plug on it. And yeah, that might be it for them.
And those are the stories you got to tell quickly. But I get where they're coming from. They always want to reward people like us, the sickos who love this and pay attention to every week. And they want us to be rewarded. But it has to be a way to figure out how to do that quickly, but still, you know, still reward us in the long-term watching.
Right. Well, we got to get out of here pretty quick here. But before we do, I did want to ask, I read you about 20 names. Is there anyone on that list that stands out as, oh, they're probably going to make the jump to AEW?
Zoe Stark. For some reason, Zoe Stark
I saw her at Mania last week. She just kind of started walking around. I know she had a major injury, which was really unfortunate, but she looked to be, you know, I don't know the recovery timeline and where we're at, but she looked to be in shape. Ring shape.
Apollo Cruz. I know I snuck another one in there. You know, I think about him and the stuff that, you know, him as Uha Nation. You know, it seems like a lot of his friends over there, I could see them on the phone with him right now. Come on, man, come get this money.
That makes sense. My pick for the AEW jump is probably the Machine Guns. You know, they had a hot start in WWE, won the tag titles damn near right away. There was a significant cooling off period. I think they were trying to reheat them with this Gargano thing, but it just didn't play out, unfortunately. But they'll probably have some bangers in AEW. Like I could see that, you know, happening on Dynamite next week if need be, you know? Well, yeah, man. Thanks for hopping on here. Obviously a bummer of a night, but it's you know, I think a lot of these guys and girls will absolutely land on their feet. You know, the silver lining when these things happen is the support and the success stories that you see of people who have been released by WWE, who have found their almost, you know, their second life outside of the you know, the big company. You know, AJ Francis tweeted out today. I'm sure, you know, Dakota Kai, now Charlie, has, you know, tweeted out her support, and, you know, she's doing her thing on the independents now. And, you know, there's even people within WWE currently on the roster right now who have gone through this exact same thing, right? Matt Cardona, Cody Rhodes when he left, right? So and I feel like just with the way that wrestling is and the internet is, there's just a lot more avenues for all of these people to kind of do their thing and still continue to make a living out of this. So obviously sending our thoughts and can't wait to see them all back in the ring soon. All right. Well, catch David and Kaz on the Masked Man Show on Monday. Full breakdowns. They'll talk SmackDown. They'll talk all of this stuff. But everybody else, we'll catch you soon. Thanks, everybody.
And hit subscribe.